All right, everyone. So Dominik Mysterio went on to the Impulsive podcast and he talked about this kind of move from Raw to or from for Raw to going to Netflix, right? And one of the things that people are excited for is that, well, when it's on Netflix, it could be a little bit more edgy, right? You're not going to have things being crowd chants being basically, kind of blacked out and all of that kind of stuff, right? So this is what he said on the Impulsive podcast. I think people are going to expect us to go in there on first episode of Raw on Netflix. People are going to expect blood and tables everywhere, titties, Edge and Lita, where they had the live sex show. I'm sure people are going to expect that. I feel in order for stuff like that to be special and meaningful, you can't have it all the time. It's got to come like an RKO out of nowhere. You don't expect it, and then it's boom, tit. I don't know if it's necessarily going to edge up. I think it's going to take time to edge up. I think we're going to gradually stay the same and then slowly start testing our boundaries. So what he's saying is, it's going to be probably take a little while to get there, right, to the edgier content, and also it's not going to be an all the time thing. And we did this video a while back about Eric Bischoff. He talked about this, right? He kind of talked about the change to Netflix, and he had similar sentiments. And we wanted to make it clear that WWE should follow what Eric Bischoff is saying with that. Because so there's one thing to keep in mind. The Attitude Era, people think of it as this time where it was just so edgy, it was just so crazy. And it was, right? Certainly, especially for the 90s, it was edgy. But one of the things that made the Attitude Era so great was that there was great characters and great storytelling. So it wasn't edgy to be edgy. Now, certainly some segments were, maybe, certain segments were, but not all of them, right? It wasn't the idea that the only thing that makes this great is that it's the craziest thing ever, right? There were different appeals to different groups of people. And for the 90s, it certainly was an edgy show. As it we got into the 2000s, right? And as you go through the early 2000s, this is where people actually began to kind of look at wrestling and go, am I kind of out on this now, right? There was a great time right after with the Ruthless Aggression era, but there was a time when WWE just started really trying to recreate that Attitude Era magic, and that wasn't working because it was just being edgy to be edgy. And then that's when they decided we're going to swerve and we're going to go the opposite way, right? We're going to be basically a PG show. And so I think that's important to keep in mind for WWE here is that I think they're actually at a point where you could keep both. Meaning you don't have to say, okay, we're going to basically kick out an entire audience that is, not going to be old enough to watch like the Attitude Era version of wrestling. And I know when we were all kids, we were watching it anyways, but we're talking about en masse, right? There might be parents who go, oh, you're not watching that now if things got too crazy. So I think there's a way that you could keep those fans around and also appeal to the fans that are like, we just want this to be a little bit more edgy, right? A little bit more realistic, a little bit less cartoony. I think right now they're in a good spot with that. And I think you can certainly go up a little bit, right? You can have some of the swearing, you can have the crowds chanting stuff. You could have the blood and the tables and all of that stuff. I think that's all fine. Right? That's all stuff you can add in even more and you could definitely make it important, right, in a part of the show without going completely to the other side where it's just like stuff where, you know, you're doing these storylines that are just clearly edgy to be edgy, right? That was the whole point of them is just to be edgy. I think they don't need those storylines because they're telling good stories without doing it. And even the Attitude Era, at its peak from, if we're talking 97 through 2000, you know, there were edgy storylines, but it's not necessarily what made the show great. The Vince and Stone Cold storyline was one of a lot of trash talk and a lot of, stunners and put him through a table and beat him up. But it wasn't over the top edgy, right? It wasn't over the top, way over the thing. And I think they'll be able to do that. So I hope that's how WWE goes with this. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.